I got a call. I was going to an appointment and meeting my sister, and I saw my sister, and she said, "You have to go home." I have chills even talking about it. Instantly, I knew something was wrong. I didn't quite pinpoint it yet because Lisa was supposed to come home that day. He was going out on tour.
Elvis Presley, alive at 99 years old, and spilling shocking secrets about why he vanished. Yes, the king himself is back, and he's ready to reveal the truth behind the conspiracy that fooled the world for decades. Has he spent the last 40 years evading the Mafia, blending into everyday life, hiding in plain sight as preacher Bob Joyce? Tune in, because this revelation will change everything we thought we knew about the king, and it's not over yet. Inside the Elvis conspiracy, the king himself, supposedly 90 years old, has apparently been spotted alive and kicking. It's a story that just won't die, much like Elvis himself apparently. For decades, people have sworn that Elvis never really left the building, and now we've got the latest twist in this long-running saga. All right, buckle up, folks, because we've got yet another Elvis is alive story for you. The king, supposedly 90 years old, has apparently been spotted again. The whole fake death idea used to be laughed off as a wild conspiracy theory. But the more time passes, the more people keep finding odd little facts and evidence that make you wonder. And let's not forget about that mysterious black helicopter that people supposedly saw around Graceland on the day he died. Rumor has it that it was there to whisk him away to freedom. Then there's Dr. Donald Hinton, who swore up and down that he treated the rock star for 5 years after his supposed death. Apparently he was alive, just chilling somewhere under a new identity. These kinds of claims and sightings have kept the whole still alive theory very much alive too. Then there's Bob Joyce, a preacher with an eerie resemblance to the rock legend. Seriously, have you seen this guy? The jawline, the eyes, even the way he talks and sings, it's all just a little too close for comfort. And guess what? Bob Joyce even showed up at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral, which made everyone lose their minds. People are now saying, that's it, Bob Joyce is him. Because why else would he be there blending right in with the Presley family? Bob Joyce, by the way, keeps denying he's the rock star, but honestly, every time he says, I'm not him, it feels like he's just adding more fuel to the fire. It's almost like he's being too insistent. Plus, Joyce kind of appeared out of nowhere right around the time the death rumors started picking up steam. He just slipped into the public eye with a lot of question marks around his past. Where did he come from? Who was he before he became a preacher? It's all just a little too convenient, don't you think? And here's the kicker. Sometimes when Joyce is preaching, it's like he almost slips up and refers to himself as the rock legend. He'll catch himself, of course, but people notice. Add that to the fact that his sermons often touch on themes the rock star was known to care about, like faith, spirituality, and redemption. And it's no wonder folks are convinced. It's like watching an impersonator who's way too good at the job. Now let's dive into one of the wilder theories. Some people think he faked his death to escape the Mafia. Apparently he got mixed up with some shady folks, and things got so bad that the only way out was to disappear for good. Makes for a dramatic story, doesn't it? The official story of his death has plenty of holes too. Conflicting autopsy reports, the condition of his body, and that bizarrely waxy look during his funeral. And then there's how they rushed his burial. And it gets better. People have claimed to have seen him alive in random places all over the world. One of the most famous sightings happened in the 1990s, in none other than the movie Home Alone. Remember that scene at the airport? There's this bearded extra in the background who looks just like what you'd think an older version of him might look like. Conspiracy theorists went absolutely wild over that one. There have also been rumors about a guy buying a one-way ticket to Argentina the day after his supposed death. Because of course, if you were the king of rock and roll on the run, you'd head to Argentina. The still alive theories are like a giant game of Clue, except no one ever finds the answer, and we all just keep playing forever. The sightings, the evidence, and the lookalikes like Bob Joyce keep people hooked. It's all a little bit ridiculous, but people want to believe. It's way more exciting to think that he faked his death and has been living it up in secret for all these years than to accept that he passed away just like anyone else. It keeps the magic alive. Let's look at more details and incidents that have kept these theories alive for so many years. First off, let's talk about the black helicopter. The idea of a mysterious helicopter landing at Graceland right before he was found unresponsive has been one of the key pieces of evidence for believers. Some neighbors and supposed witnesses claim they saw this black helicopter arrive and depart hastily, giving rise to speculation that he hopped on it to make his escape. The thought here is that, overwhelmed by the pressures of fame and possibly scared for his life, he arranged for a secret getaway. A quick and clean helicopter ride out of his famous home could have been the start of his new quiet life. And it's not just the helicopter. There were several inconsistencies at the scene of his death that made people skeptical. From the way his body was found to the people present in the house that day, none of it seemed to add up quite right. Another strange detail that keeps people talking is the autopsy report. The official story says he died of a heart attack, but there were numerous discrepancies in the report. Some accounts suggest that the autopsy findings were inconsistent or incomplete, and several of the doctors who examined his body have given conflicting stories about what really happened. For a public figure of his stature, one would think that the circumstances of his death would be crystal clear. But instead, we have a muddled mess that only adds to the mystery. One of the biggest inconsistencies was the supposed weight of his body at the time of death. Some reports say he weighed much more than was observed during the funeral viewing, which is why many people believe a wax figure was used in his place. The end of Elvis's journey might just be the beginning of something unexpected. Who was in that coffin? The viewing of the body at the funeral was one of the more bizarre elements of this entire conspiracy. Many attendees claimed the deceased looked too good for someone who had just died of a supposed heart attack. The skin appeared smooth and youthful, almost as if made of wax. In fact, some suggested that the hands looked off, with one hand noticeably different from the other. This fueled the belief that what people were seeing was actually a lifelike wax replica. And why would anyone do that? Well, to cover up the fact that the real person was alive and kicking elsewhere, of course. Then there's the strange issue of the tombstone. The inscription reads, Elvis Aaron Presley. But here's the thing. His middle name was actually spelled Aaron with one A. The addition of the extra A has led many to believe it was done intentionally to signal that it wasn't really him who was buried there. To conspiracy theorists, this was a sly nod to those in the know, hinting that the person buried there wasn't the real one at all, but rather an empty coffin or even someone else entirely. And let's not forget about the numerous sightings over the years. The Home Alone sighting might be the most famous one, but it's certainly not the only one. In the early 1980s, there were multiple reports of people seeing him at random diners, gas stations, and even a Burger King in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The Kalamazoo sighting became something of a legend itself, as several people claimed that they saw a man who looked strikingly similar, wearing sunglasses and ordering a Whopper. The description was always the same: the unmistakable swagger, sideburns, and that trademark half smile. To this day, people in Kalamazoo talk about it like it happened yesterday. Another interesting point is the FBI connection. Some released FBI documents suggest that he was an informant, and some conspiracy theorists believe that he faked his death as part of an arrangement with the FBI to go into witness protection. According to these believers, he had gotten tangled up with some dangerous people and provided crucial information to the authorities, which ultimately forced him into hiding to protect himself and his loved ones. It sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, but there are enough vague FBI documents and memos that people have been able to string together to form a somewhat plausible narrative. At the very least, it adds one more layer of intrigue to the mystery. And then there's Bob Joyce. The resemblance between Bob Joyce and the King is uncanny, and it's not just his looks, it's his voice, mannerisms, even his laugh. Bob Joyce, who is a preacher, also happens to have a voice that sounds almost identical. He sings gospel, just like the legend loved to do, and has said things during his sermons that have made people raise an eyebrow. For instance, during one sermon, Joyce spoke about having a past life filled with glitz and glamour, but said it left him empty until he found faith. For many, this was essentially a confession. After all, who else could he have been? One of the more recent twists in the Bob Joyce saga is his attendance at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral. The fact that he was there, blending in so seamlessly with the rest of the family, has convinced many people that he's not just a look-alike, he's the real deal. People analyze footage and photos from the funeral, pointing out how comfortable he seemed around the relatives and how emotional he appeared during certain moments. It's as if he was grieving his daughter, which only adds more fuel to the fire. Bob Joyce, of course, has denied being the king multiple times. He's done interviews where he's flat out stated that he is not the one in question, but every denial seems to do the opposite of what it's intended to do. Instead of shutting down the rumors, it only makes people more suspicious. After all, why would someone need to deny it so often if it weren't true? It's almost like he's trying too hard to convince people, and that in itself is enough to keep the theories alive. And it's not just Bob Joyce. There have been others suspected of being him in disguise. One of the more popular theories involves a man named John Cotner, who has a striking resemblance and also sounds eerily similar. Cotner has been linked to several supposed sightings, and some people believe that he too might be the king living under an assumed identity. Cotner's refusal to answer questions about his past has only added to the speculation, and like Bob Joyce, he's also been known to reference themes and experiences that closely align with the legend's life. Born in good old Tupelo, Mississippi, he worked his way from absolutely nothing to becoming the swiveling hip legend we know today. He brought rock and roll into the mainstream, blending blues, gospel, and whatever else he could get his hands on. Until every single teenager in America was losing their minds. He hit it big in 1954 with that lucky trip into Sun Records, where Sam Phillips decided that he had the voice, and more importantly, the right skin tone, to bring black music to white audiences. Fast forward, and hits like Heartbreak Hotel and Hound Dog made him an overnight sensation. People loved him, others hated him, but no one could look away. Just when you think the story is over, a new twist changes everything, from Memphis to myth. And then, of course, there was the fall. The late 1960s weren't too kind to our boy. Turns out, becoming a caricature of yourself for B-grade Hollywood movies isn't the ticket to eternal coolness. He did have his comeback, that leather-clad '68 comeback special, where for a brief moment, he reminded everyone why they cared in the first place. Then came Vegas, the rhinestone-studded performances that turned him into the glitzy punchline we remember just as well as the early hits. He still drew crowds, sure, but it was a spectacle, more circus act than rock show. And as for the end, well, it's no secret he wasn't in the best shape in his final years. We're talking prescription drugs, fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches, a diet that could make even the most loyal fans wince. August 16, 1977, he was found dead in his Graceland bathroom, reportedly collapsing under the weight of his own lifestyle. Cue the public mourning, the endless radio tributes, and, you guessed it, the conspiracies. Because apparently no one wants to let a superstar just die in peace. Nope, people needed to believe he faked it all. Maybe he was tired of the fame, or maybe he just had enough peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Whatever the reason, people started seeing him everywhere. Michigan, Tennessee, even the odd sighting at Burger King. Where else would a rock and roll legend hide out than in line for a Whopper, right? There's always some blurry photograph, some suspiciously vague story about a guy who looked just like him, buying a fuse at a hardware store. Because if you were the king of rock and roll trying to lay low, you'd definitely keep the pompadour and jumpsuit, right? Totally inconspicuous. And these sightings just keep coming. In fact, a group in Ottawa even founded something called the Elvis Sighting Society in the 1980s, dedicating themselves to tracking down every old guy with slick back hair and a bit of swagger. They've even got a street named Elvis Lives Lane. The best part? These folks have taken their fandom to the next level. Charity work and all. At least they're putting all that delusion to some good use. Now, don't get me wrong, he's the icon. The dude could sing, move, and had charisma dripping off him. He practically wrote the playbook for rock stardom before anyone even knew there was a playbook. Michael Jackson, Prince, they all took a page from him. And sure, it's kind of nice to think that someone like that is too big to fail, too legendary to actually leave us. But let's be real here. He's probably not sipping a Coke at a Burger King in Michigan. He's not hiding out somewhere, living his best 90-year-old life. The reason people keep holding on to these stories is because he meant something. He was bigger than life. So much so that the idea of him just dying in a bathroom seems impossible. People don't want to let go. They keep making up stories, keep imagining sightings, keep the myth alive. And maybe that's what this all comes down to. The legend just can't die. His music's still playing. His face is still on every tacky piece of memorabilia you can buy in Memphis. He's bigger now than he was when he was alive. And that's saying something. His life is the kind of story that makes you wonder how someone could have such an impact. Born in a two-room shotgun house in Mississippi during the Great Depression, his family had nothing. He grew up in poverty, moving from place to place, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. His father, Vernon, was jailed when he was still a child for altering a check, which plunged the family into deeper hardship. But somehow, even in those dire straits, he found music. He listened to gospel at church, learned blues from the local black musicians, and found solace in country tunes on the radio. His love for music only grew stronger. He practiced constantly, even when others thought he was strange for it. The way he dressed, the way he acted, he was different, and people let him know it. But he wasn't discouraged. By the time he stepped into Sun Records in 1954, he was ready. It wasn't an easy road to stardom. His first singles didn't exactly catch fire, and it took some time for people to get used to the idea of this young white boy singing black music. But when it finally hit, it hit big. He became a household name almost overnight. Teenagers loved him, parents were horrified by him, and the press couldn't get enough of him. He was shaking things up, literally. His hip-shaking performances were scandalous to the older generation, but they only made the kids love him more. He had a voice that could croon a love song 1 minute and belt out a rock anthem the next. And he had that look, that perfectly coiffed hair, the curled lip, the clothes that no one else would dare to wear. He was charisma personified, and people couldn't get enough. But fame is a fickle friend, and he learned that the hard way. As the 60s rolled in, he found himself being nudged out of the spotlight. The British invasion brought a whole new kind of rock and roll, and his movie career, full of fluff pieces with little substance, wasn't helping his credibility. He was stuck in a rut, playing the same character over and over again. A far cry from the edgy, rebellious image he once had. The comeback special in 1968 was his way of reminding people who he was. Dressed head to toe in black leather, performing live with a fire that hadn't been seen in years, he showed the world that he still had it. What do you think? Was Elvis truly the king of rock and roll, or just a product of clever marketing? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.